The silence of SDRs, the harmonic towers of Ethon Prime, sang no more. Sharia pressed her crystalline hand against the observation portal, watching another spire collapse into prismatic dust. The Kelrathi had built their civilization over 12,000 cycles, growing cities from living crystal that resonated with the music of their thoughts. Now, the Vrexian collective's plasma bombardment reduced millennia of culture to silence in mere hours. "The last harmonic vault has fallen," whispered Trenok, her bondsmate, his translucent form flickering with grief. "The song of ancestors is lost." Below them, in the shielded diplomatic bunker beneath the capital, the remaining Kelrathi leadership huddled in what might be their final hours. 3 million of their people had already been vaporized. The Vrexians wanted their world specifically, the rare photonic crystals that formed Ethon Prime's crust. Crystals that were horrifyingly the fossilized remains of ancient Kelrathi. Sharia straightened her form, light refracting through her body in determined patterns. "I will send the last sequence. Someone must answer. Someone must." She moved to the quantum communication array, its mechanism still functioning despite the carnage above. The Kelrathi were pacifists by nature and philosophy. They had no weapons, no armies, no concept of deliberate violence. Their first contact with the Vrexians had been an attempt at cultural exchange. The response had been orbital bombardment. Her fingers danced across the crystalline interface, broadcasting the distress signal across 17 known civilizations. Each was technologically advanced. Each was capable of intervention. Each, Sharia desperately hoped, possessed something the Kelrathi had read about in Galactic texts but never truly understood, the concept of protecting others. The first response came from the Centauri ascendancy within the hour. "Your plight is acknowledged," the message stated in cold, formal tones. However, the Centauri ascendancy maintained strict neutrality in territorial disputes. Intervention would violate our foundational principles. "We wish you efficiency in your negotiations." Sharia's light dimmed. Negotiations with beings who answered diplomacy with death. The Pelorian hegemony responded next. The hegemony's military assets are currently committed to border security operations. We cannot spare forces for conflicts outside our sphere of influence. May your crystalline forms find peace in dissolution. Then the Orinthian Commonwealth. Economic analysis indicates intervention would destabilize regional trade agreements. We regret we cannot assist. One by one, 17 civilizations delivered their verdicts. The reasons varied: neutrality doctrines, resource allocation, political complications, simple indifference, but the result remained constant. 17 advanced empires chose to watch the Kelrathi die dot in the bunker. The council convened for what everyone knew would be the last time. "Perhaps we should surrender," Elder Kinara suggested, his form pale with despair. "Offer ourselves as laborers. Some of us might survive." "They don't want laborers," Sharia replied, her voice resonating with hollow certainty. "They want our crystals. They want our fossilized ancestors. They want us extinct so they can mine our corpses without moral complications." Trenok moved beside her. "Then we face dissolution with dignity. The song may end, but we choose how." Sharia nodded, preparing to shut down the communications array. Then it chimed one final response from a distant corner of the galaxy sheet. Almost forgotten broadcasting toward Dot the signal came. From a world labeled in the Galactic Registry as Earth, a quarantined deathworld whose inhabitants had only achieved faster-than-light travel 3 decades prior. Sharia had included them more from desperation than hope. What could a species so young, so primitive, possibly offer? She opened the message. Admiral Keiko Chan stood before the United Earth Defense Command's emergency session, her dark eyes scanning the faces of representatives from 63 nations. Behind her, The holographic display showed Ethon Prime in real time, a crystalline jewel being systematically shattered. "The Kelrathi have been broadcasting for 8 hours," she stated. 17 civilizations have explicitly refused assistance. The Vrexian fleet consists of 42 heavy cruisers and an estimated ground force of 20,000. At current bombardment rates, the Kelrathi will be extinct within 48 hours. Ambassador Kowalski from the European Federation stood. "With respect, Admiral, Ethon Prime is 72 light-years away. We've never engaged in military operations beyond our own system. These Vrexians, we know nothing about their capabilities. We know they're murdering an entire species." Chun replied flatly. "A species we've never met," interjected Representative Okafor from the African Union. "We have no treaty obligations, no strategic interests. Our fleet is designed for system defense, not interstellar warfare." Then, what was the point? The voice rang clear across the chamber. Ambassador Kowalski, from Poland, a different Kowalski than the Federation representative. This one younger, angrier, stepped forward. "We spent 2 centuries nearly destroying ourselves. Wars over resources, territory, ideology. We barely survived. And when we finally united, when we finally built this fleet, we promised ourselves, never again. Never again would we stand by while innocents died." "That was about humanity," someone objected. "No," Kowalski's voice cracked like a whip. "It was about choosing who we wanted to be. The Kelrathi are crystalline beings who built cities that sing. They've never known war. They're dying because they can't even conceptualize defending themselves. And we're debating response times and strategic interests while a genocide happens in real time?" The chamber fell silent. Admiral Chun pulled up another display ship manifests, crew rosters, logistics chains. "If we authorize deployment within the hour, the Mercy fleet can reach Ethon Prime in 36 hours using our new void jump drives. 42 warships against their 42. Even odds," someone muttered. "Not even close." Chun smiled grimly. "They've never fought a deathworld species before. They have no idea what's coming." The vote was called. 37 in favor, 23 opposed, 3 abstentions. Humanity would intervene. Asterisk Fleet Commander Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of the UEDS Indomitable, watching the assembly of Earth's most powerful warships. Vessels named Katrina, Krakatoa, Verdun, Stalingrad, each bearing the name of a place where humanity had faced catastrophe and endured. His second officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, approached. "Engineering reports all 42 ships ready for void jump. Marines are loaded. Medical bays prepped for Kelrathi physiology based on the data they transmitted." Webb nodded, studying the tactical displays. The Vrexians relied on energy shields and plasma weapons, standard galactic military doctrine. Humanity had taken a different path. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Armor designed to withstand the crushing gravity of Earth and the radiation of space. Ships built by a species that evolved dodging asteroids and surviving solar flares. "Do you think we can win, sir?" Park asked quietly. Webb considered the question. Humanity had been spacefaring for only 30 years. These other civilizations had millennia of experience, but they'd never fought anyone who had survived Earth. "I think," Webb said slowly, "they're about to learn why the galaxy quarantined us in the first place. Not because we're dangerous to ourselves." He smiled without humor. "Because we're dangerous to anyone who threatens the innocent." The fleet jumped into the void, carrying humanity's answer across the stars. "Yes, we hear you. We're coming." Part 2. Thunder across the VOID, the Vrexian Command Cruiser Dominance. Eternal hung in high orbit over Ethon Prime. Its commander, War Prime Zexther, reviewing casualty estimates with satisfaction. 92% of the crystalline population eliminated. Resistance, not that the pathetic creatures offered any nearly. Extinct. Then his sensor officer's chittering alarm interrupted his calculations. War Prime. Void space rupture detected. Massive displacement. Multiple contacts emerging at system's edge. Zexther's 4 eyes narrowed. The Kalrathi have no fleet. Identify. The tactical display populated with red icons. 42 vessels. Configuration unknown. Zexther felt a flutter of concern. Had one of the 17 civilizations changed their minds? Then the lead vessel transmitted. Phyrexian forces, this is Fleet Commander Marcus Webb of the United Earth Defense Command. You are engaged in genocide against a peaceful species. You have one opportunity to withdraw your forces and depart this system. If you do not comply within the next 60 minutes, we will remove you by force. This is your only warning. Zexther's concern evaporated into amusement. Earth? The quarantined deathworld whose primitives had barely achieved slip space? He accessed the galactic database. Homo sapiens bilateral, carbon-based, technologically emergent. Originated on high-gravity world with extreme environmental conditions. Quarantined due to historical violence and psychological instability. Military capabilities, negligible. He opened a channel, his translator rendering his clicking laughter into standard. Little Deathworlders, return to your backwater planet. This is Vrexian territory now. You have no authority, no power, and no hope of survival if you engage. We are a civilization of 18 star systems. You are children playing with ships you barely understand. The response came immediately, the human's voice utterly calm. 59 minutes, War Prime. Choose wisely. Zexther signaled his fleet commanders. Eliminate these insects. Let's see how their primitive vessels perform against actual military technology. 20 Vrexian cruisers broke orbit, plasma batteries charging. Below, in the shattered remains of the Kalrathi capital, Sharia watched through the bunker's sensors, her crystalline heart flickering between hope and terror. The first Vrexian salvo lit the void with emerald fire. Plasma bolts capable of vaporizing asteroids streaked toward the human fleet. On the Indomitable's bridge, Lieutenant Park gripped her console. Incoming fire. 27 plasma streams, impact in 15 seconds. Maintain course, Webb ordered. Don't activate evasive protocols. Let them hit us. Park's head snapped toward him. Sir? Trust me, Lieutenant. And watch. The plasma struck. Indomitable shuddered, her ablative armor flaring brilliant white as it dissipated the superheated gas. Across the fleet, human ships absorbed impacts that should have crippled them and kept coming. All vessels report minimal damage, Park reported, disbelief in her voice. Armor holding at 86% effectiveness. Webb smiled. The Vrexians build ships for space a relatively gentle environment by galactic standards. We build ships to survive Earth. He leaned forward. All vessels, return fire. Show them what kinetic warfare means. The Indomitable's railguns spoke. Tungsten slugs, each weighing 3 tons, accelerated to 12% of light speed. No energy fields to evade, no plasma to dissipate, just mass and velocity, creating destruction on a primal level. The first projectile struck a Vrexian cruiser's shield. The shield, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. The slug punched through the hull, through bulkheads and crew quarters and power systems, exiting the far side and continuing into the void. The cruiser broke in half, atmosphere venting, systems dying. 4 more Vrexian ships died in the opening salvo. Impossible. Zexther roared, watching his tactical display dissolve into chaos. Their weapons ignore shields. What kind of barbaric war crime? They're not using plasma or lasers, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. Solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our shields aren't configured for. Another cruiser exploded. Webb watched the battle unfold with clinical precision. The Vrexians were scrambling now, trying evasive maneuvers their ships weren't designed for. Humanity had spent millennia perfecting the art of throwing rocks at enemies. These aliens were learning that lesson at 20,000 kilometers per second. Launch marine pods, Webb ordered. Begin planetary descent. Priority is civilian extraction and securing remaining population centers. Sir, there are still 18 Vrexian vessels in orbit. 17. Webb corrected as another enemy cruiser died. And in 3 minutes, there will be fewer. Those Marines have a job to do. Send them. Captain Dmitry Volkov led 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines down through Ethon Prime's crystalline atmosphere in armored drop pods. Around him, 2,000 human Marines descended toward a world they'd never seen to save a species they'd never met. The Kalrathi had transmitted environmental data, high radiation, atmospheric composition toxic to most galactic species, crushing gravity by galactic standards 1.4 times what humans considered standard. Feels like home, Volkov muttered, checking his squad's readouts. Earth normal was 1.0 G. The Vrexians evolved on a 0.7 G world. The Kalrathi on 0.9 G. The humans were about to demonstrate what a 1.0 G evolution meant. They landed in the ruins of the capital, suits sealed against the toxic atmosphere, weapons hot. Vrexian ground forces tall, insectoid beings in powered armor, immediately opened fire. Volkov's Marines charged. The Vrexians had never encountered an enemy that could simply take the hits. Human armor, designed to withstand Earth's hazardous environment, absorbed their plasma bolts. And then the humans closed to melee range, a species that evolved on a high-gravity deathworld, running at full speed in 1.4 G, hitting with the force of their entire evolutionary history behind every blow. The Vrexians broke. This way. A crystalline voice echoed through Volkov's translator. A Kalrathi civilian Sharia, his HUD identified, emerged from a bunker entrance. Please, thousands are trapped below. We cannot move the rubble. Show me, Volkov ordered, directing a squad forward. What happened next would become legend among the Kalrathi. Human soldiers, without powered equipment, lifting debris that massed hundreds of kilograms, carrying wounded Kalrathi to safety, creating defensive perimeters with their own bodies while medics worked. Sharia watched a human Marine named Chun, no relation to the Admiral, take a plasma bolt meant for a Kalrathi child. The Marine's armor held, barely, and Chun simply returned fire before continuing the evacuation. Why? Sharia whispered in wonder. Why would you risk yourselves for us? Chun glanced at her, faceplate retracting briefly to reveal a young woman's determined expression. Because nobody else would. And because that's unacceptable. Above, the battle reached its conclusion. Of the 42 Vrexian vessels that had engaged, 28 were destroyed, 11 were crippled and fleeing, and 3 had surrendered. Human casualties, 0 ships lost, 47 personnel wounded, 3 critical. War Prime Zexter sat in his damaged command center, mandibles clicking in shock. Impossible. The humans weren't just winning, they were dominant. Their ships, their weapons, their soldiers all superior, despite being technologically primitive. Then he understood. Technology wasn't everything. The humans had evolved in hell and built their military accordingly. He activated the retreat signal. What remained of his fleet jumping away in disgrace. On the surface, as the last Vrexian forces evacuated, Sharia stood with Commander Volkov, watching human medical teams coordinate with Kalrathi healers. engineers stabilizing damaged structures, supply ships descending with food and equipment. Your fleet was outnumbered, she said softly. The galaxy said you were too young, too primitive. Yet you came. Volkov looked at the crystalline being, thinking of the vote that had sent them here. Not unanimous, but enough. My grandfather fought in a war where he watched millions die because nobody intervened. He taught me, evil triumphs when good people do nothing. Humanity learned that lesson in blood. We're trying to be better. Webb's voice crackled through every human comb. All forces, this is Fleet Command. Ethon Prime is secure. Begin humanitarian operations. Well done, everyone. You've honored Earth today. Across the galaxy, the 17 civilizations that had refused aid watched their long-range sensors in stunned silence. The quarantined deathworlders hadn't just fought, they'd won decisively. And more importantly, they'd fought not for conquest or resources, but for principle. In the Galactic Council chamber, deep in neutral space, an emergency session convened. The humans intervened, the Xanthari representative stated. And one, added the Pelorian delegate, voice troubled, and are now ... The Orinthian ambassador checked his data, establishing medical facilities, infrastructure support, and defensive installations. They're not occupying. They're helping rebuild. A long silence fell. Perhaps, said the eldest counselor, a being of energy and ancient wisdom, we need to reconsider what we thought we knew about humanity. They are dangerous, yes, but not to those who need protection. Only to those who threaten the innocent. The council adjourned, but the galaxy's understanding had shifted. 6 months later, Marcus Webb stood in the Hall of Eternal Song rebuilt, harmonics restored, singing once more with Kelrothi voices. Sharia approached, her crystalline form now etched with honorary patterns, the first ever granted to an alien species. 17 calls have come, she told him quietly. Oppressed civilizations, worlds facing aggression. They all asked the same question. Will humanity help? Webb felt the weight of it. Earth, still young, still learning, suddenly becoming the galaxy's conscience. We can't save everyone, he said honestly. No, Sharia agreed. But you'll try. That's what makes you different. The galaxy is powerful, Commander. But you're the first species we've encountered. That's also good. Webb thought of Earth's bloody history, all the times humanity had failed its own principles, but also of the times they'd risen to them. We're trying, he said. That's all we can do. Keep trying to be better than we were. Sharia's light pulsed in what Webb had learned was a smile. Then the galaxy has hope. Outside, the combined fleet human and Kelrothi vessels together prepared for departure. More calls were coming. More worlds needed help. And humanity, the deathworld species that evolved in fire and learned compassion in blood, was ready to answer. The stars had called from Mercy. And from Earth, Mercy came armed. And asterisk.